I am on another journey, and today's journey involves an author who's currently working with a publisher in New York City to finish her autobiography. And at the time of recording, which is January the 27th, 2025, it could be well out in the next few weeks, whenever, but I'll let our guest tell us. But the book got sidetracked because a very dear friend of theirs passed away last month from cancer. So they decided to add a final chapter to bring their readers up to speed on what their life is like present day. And he writes, to be honest, I took a lot of personal time off to be with his friend in his final days. The storyteller's link, which will be included in the description, was about him attending in October to pitch his story to all the producers, directors, and investors to see if his story can be made into a movie. So that's another plus as well. And I will quote this because it comes from the Bible and he's put it in the email. It says, so now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. And that's from John 13, 45, 34 to 35. And that's the New Living Translation version. I say no more because that's all I've got in my notes, and I don't usually have notes, but I welcome Michael to the journey.
Hey, good afternoon, David, or good morning, I should say. Still
Well,
morning here in Fargo.
I'll
So,
say good morning, as the saying goes from the Truman Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
there you go. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, David, you and I were talking a little bit before we came on the air. So I was kind of sharing my background with you, which I can
Mm,
share with your listeners. And that is that I had a dad that was a sole provider of our house. My mom stayed home with all the siblings and myself, so there was five kids in the family. My dad was a manager for the J.C. Penney clothing store line. I've gotten moved around to a couple different towns when I was growing up, and wound up after the age of 12. He was fired at his management job in Sauk Center, Minnesota, and he was pretty much out of options and still had his family to support. So he moved us all up to a little town right outside of Fargo, North Dakota, by the name of Barnesville, Minnesota, population of about 2,000 people. And a long story short, right after he had moved us there, he died. He passed away 3 years afterwards. So I was a sophomore in high school. And I share with everybody that I'm a two-time suicide survivor. And that was my first attempt to take my own life, was right after he died. I was very downtrodden, and I think anybody would be at that young age. So I had that to deal with severe mental illness, sunk in really fast. I just started to go on a very deep downward spiral. And as I also shared, I tried college for 1 year, flunked out of college. So I joined the Air Force since we were losing our everything. Um, I didn't have an option to live at home because that was being taken from the banks. So uh, joined the military and spent all my time in the state of Texas. I wanted to go overseas, but that wasn't in the cards for me. So I just got stationed permanent party up in Wichita Falls, Texas at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is right in Tornado Alley. So, yeah, North Texas. And I just wound up having a lot of good good times in there, but too many good times because I was caught smoking marijuana with 11 other people, and that was many years ago. Nancy Reagan had her war on drugs, so they didn't go for people smoking pot like everybody does in America these days. So I was uh, I was discharged with a medical discharge under honorable conditions. And as we speak currently, after going through so much in my life, I'm 100% service connected veteran, which means I get a check on the first of every month for a little over $3,800 tax free. So that's what I'm up to these days. And I'm right now in the middle of completing my book, as you mentioned. I'm very excited about that. It's called The Gutter Gospel. The Road to Redemption is the subtitle, which kind of sums it all up. You know, it talks about how we have an ugly, addictive mind, but you can come back from it. I offer people hope in what I write about. So that took me 30 years to write. I was always journaling as part of my way to cope with everything that I had been going through. And like I mentioned, I had two civil commitments placed on me, both in North Dakota and in Minnesota, which means basically you lose your freedoms, all your freedoms, and have to live in homeless shelters. I lived in one outside of St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is where I was for treatment back in 2019. And then another one up here in the Fargo, North Dakota system. So I was put in chains and had to appear before many judges to beg for my freedoms, but they weren't granted. So I had to go out to the state institution for 6 weeks in Jamestown, North Dakota. That's where the state hospital's at. And yeah, I was just, you know, I was so mis. I don't know if it was misunderstood or what, because I have bipolar disorder, and as we were talking about, you know, that doesn't have to define anybody. It's just
Mm.
that I didn't have my medications balanced. So I just yeah, I was out there for 6 weeks and been through a long journey in my life. And I remember being in that state institution and just crying out to God saying, why me? You know, just having a pity party. And there was this plaque on the wall, I'll never forget this. It said, you've been given this life because you're strong enough to live it. And so nowadays, what I do is I offer hope to people. I have custom t shirts and hoodies, excuse me, that share about 22 veterans per day commit suicide in America. And that's kind of what I think my mission is here now, is to bring awareness to that number and hopefully see that it gets reduced. I know the current number now is at 17.6 a day, but that's still too high. It was 22 per day not that long ago. So there is progress being made. They're getting the veteran service dogs, and that seems to help quite a bit. When I was in treatment, a lot of those guys had service dogs in that VA facility for alcohol and drug treatment. So, been through a lot in my life, and you know, looking back on it now, I think it was all for a purpose. God has a purpose for everybody, and that's
Mm.
what my message is for everybody that's either thinking of taking their own life or feeling really down and out, is that my voice is something that I do believe resonates with people, because when I talk about the suicide attempts, you know, I tend to get very emotional. And I know there's a lot of people out there, especially these days, that can relate to that.
Yeah, and you said about relatability, and there is, like you said, so many people can relate to it, and that's one thing about the journey. People can actually relate. That is about sharing a journey, and people can say, yes, I've been on that journey, I've been on that path. Now, you also say what we was talking about prior interview about bipolar. I truly believe, and this is me saying it in the nicest way possible, people stigmatize too quickly, especially with mental health. It's like you got mental health, you got bipolar, you got anxiety, you got depression. That's their perception, but they don't live it physically. They don't know it. They just put that label on you. And yes, it still feels like the stigma. And that's where I feel like if you've got bipolar, if you've got anxiety, you've got depression, PTSD, whatever it is, that doesn't define you as a person. What defines you as a person is who you are inside. And yes, you may have these mental health issues, but you're not wearing a big badge saying, I am bipolar.
Right.
Your t-shirt doesn't say, I'm bipolar. My name's Michael. How do you do?
Very
And
well said.
and it's just that stigma. It's like going into, learning difficulties. People get stigmatized for having learning difficulties because they talk differently, because they act differently.
Right.
As I learnt in the previous place I was involved with, it's like, and it says on one of my t-shirts I've worn because I wear it in support of it. It's like everyone's different, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they are the same person.
Yeah.
Just that they are different inside, but it doesn't mean that they are who they are. It doesn't say like you're talking to me now.
Right.
I'm not treating you as bipolar. I'm treating you as Michael.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I just feel these days, David, like I'm very blessed to have come through it all and still have a very strong platform because, like you said, a lot of people can relate to that in one degree or another. And yeah, it's just I've really been blessed. This last week and a half, 2 weeks now, everything I can see coming together. It's just not the book, but what I shared with you about that other gentleman, Adam Bird, that runs that Heroes Media group, just being kind to me and reaching out and trying to help me. So, and he's just one of them. There's a lot of people in my life now through the jail chaplain program that I shared with you. I'm involved with here in Fargo. So, and also leading the men's groups over in Moorhead out of the Life Recovery Bible. I really enjoy that. Great guys. There's only like five of us in the group, but we're very close knit. Always looking to add guys to the group, because the way I view things in life these days is if people were to be honest, everybody in church should also be in those groups because nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah,
We all have our shortcomings. So the fact that there's only five of us in there, I guess I can live with that. But um, yeah, we just have very very much to be thankful for these days in my life. That's how I look at it, approach it with gratitude that I did survive all those dark places. And I know that when people are going through those times, it's very difficult to see the silver lining around the clouds, but there always is when it comes to God. It says in Jeremiah that His plans are to prosper you and not harm you. So um, my faith really sustained me through all those dark times, and that's what the book's all about. That's why it's gutter gospel. I've lived through the dirty path of addiction in my past, and now I'm here to preach the gospel to all the hurting people, and I believe that's what God would want for me in my remaining years on the planet is to honor Him and to say, you know what, I see it now.
yeah,
I see your kindness, I see your goodness, and you were always faithful to me when I wasn't faithful to you. So that's just who God is.
yeah. And he does answer prayer because that's the key as well. When you do reach out and pray, he does answer prayers when you reach out and pray.
Right.
And I've also learnt, and this is one thing I learned from a good friend of mine over, since he became pastor. I haven't seen him for a few years now, but I know, his words still ring with me. He used to say to everyone in the church every Sunday, God is good, and we answer all the time. And then he said all the time, and we respond, God is good. And I like how he always used to have that envisioned into us every Sunday just to get us feeling good about being in church.
Yeah.
Because when you're not in church, when you're doing a Monday to Saturday, how often do you think of church unless you're doing something for the church, like a men's group, a women's group, or kids group? You're not engaged with church unless you're praying, unless you are doing something for the church.
Yeah, well, I'm
So,
a very big I'm a very big believer in small groups.
mm,
That what you shared at the opening here as we began to talk on air was about that good friend of mine that passed away with cancer last month. His name was Brad Witzke, and he introduced me to the Saturday morning men's group. The one I was referring to a couple minutes ago is a Thursday night group. So the jail chaplains has groups almost every night of the week. So that's kind of where I'm at these days, is trying to stay not just Sundays on church, but stay active every day of the week. You know,
Yeah.
that's
So
kind of where I'm at.
So even if you can't do something, if you're a part of a church, there's always something, and I would say this for any church, any organization that your faith is, there is things that you can do within your community, within the setting
Yes,
of your, church, if you're a churchgoer, I'm trying to keep it general, but, if you, whatever you are, there's something for you in your community.
correct. Yes, sir.
So going into your book, and you said it to me prior to interview, you in the final stages. Is it going to be available possibly on Amazon when it's out, or is it going to just be on your website and take it from there?
Well, we're gonna have it live on the website. The website you can see right now at theguttergospel.com, but the back office isn't hooked up because I found a different provider that we're going to be switching to later this week. That's through what's the name of it again? I got it up here. Hang on one second. Yeah, it's called launchcart.com. We're switching over to those guys because they're an American company, and they really support the church. They support veterans. So I just thought, and it's less money. So I just thought that that was something I should be switching over to. And that also has like a place for you to put your merchandise on, like I mentioned, the shirts too. So that's the reasoning behind that. And we're on, we're just in the middle of getting all of our social media profiles set up. I did set up my Instagram account. If
Which
you
people
want
can
to,
follow.
yeah. So if you want to write that down, it's the Gutter Gospel 5150. That's how you can find me on Instagram. So I would encourage your listeners to check me out there every once in a while, and I'll have the book available and notify the public that the day it's available. I'm
Hmm.
talking to my producer, I'm sorry, my publisher today after this call, and we will know a lot more. And I can reach out to you, David, and let
Hmm.
you know what's around the corner and when it's
Okay,
coming.
that'd be good.
Everything, yeah, everything's been kind of in limbo ever since I was kind of took some personal time off
That's
last month.
Which is
But
understandable because losing a close friend like that is like understandable. And
yeah,
for clarification, your Instagram will be listed in the description afterwards.
okay,
So,
good.
so going into the future, obviously you're talking about possibly your book is coming out in a few days' time, potentially, and you're talking about to seeing if your story can be made into the movie.
Yeah,
That's a good step as well because it's telling real, I'm not saying TV as always like it, but you go on TV, you see things being made. It's not real life. Yes, you get the term reality,
yeah,
but
reality show.
I use that in hypotheses because it's I I watch something and I'm thinking they're not like that in real life.
Yeah, yeah, you're
So,
exactly.
so defining new is for the movie, and if it does get made into the movie, it mustn't detract away from the real meaning of what your journey is about, because it will detract away and it will make it feel, I'm trying to not make comparisons here, but there's that scenario about someone who was in jail for, you know, helping a boyfriend, you probably heard of it, Gypsy Lee Blanchard. You know,
Yeah,
that's a sad case and it happened, yes, granted, but there were so many reality mockumentaries showing that she did this, she did that, and then she's now out of jail and she's done what she's done. She's pardoned for what she did, and she's now a mum. And
yeah,
I'm trying to keep this in a neutral way as possible. But the way I see it is some people just want it for the look at me. And again, like I
Yeah,
said, you're Michael. You're not wearing a big badge saying I'm bipolar. I just
right.
think people like you see on documentaries that are supposedly real life shouldn't go around saying, I am this person, I did this, or I am this. It should be,
Yeah,
I am Michael. Or in my
right.
case, I am David. It shouldn't be, I am David, I am anxious, I am depressed. Your case, I am Michael, I'm bipolar, I'm an author, but don't worry, I'm a good person. That's the sort of feeling I get. It's just that way forward, and I just feel like your story, if it gets published into a, TV thing, that'd be good for you.
Yeah, well, the way I look at it, David, is simply this. I look at it two ways. I look at it like what you just said about that just being gravy on top of the mashed potatoes, as they say, if it does get turned into one. And you're exactly right when you say that not to wear who you are on a shirt or whatever. Um, I think that when it's all said and done, if I can just bring awareness to, uh, that's the reason I'm doing everything, is to bring awareness to people that, if you are having such and such of issues, you can talk to me. I'll have like a 800 number up on my website for like suicide prevention and all these other things. Because I know that, when I mentioned the 22 veterans per day that take their own life, and now it's down to 17.6. So there is progress being made, but still far too high of a number. And you don't have to be a veteran to struggle in life with those issues.
Mm,
So, that's that's what I'm trying to do, to the best of my ability. God's been opening several doors for me, so I just feel like it's time to walk through those doors and say, you know what, you're not alone. There's help out there. I know that the VA itself has like a special number to call if you're suicidal. But that's just kind of where I'm at with everything these days, is to say, you know what, God, I owe you so much for having sustained me through all of those dark times, that I kind of feel like I need to pay it forward and pay it back. And that's why I'm getting all this stuff together. I I hope that we have the book done. I know we'll have it done by Wednesday, so that's the longest that it will take. It'll be out this week, and I'll post that up on Instagram for people to get the link to that, and uh, we'll go from there.
okay. And the last ultimate question is, this is what I always like to ask people. If you could say something to someone watching or listening, what would you say to them to help them on their journey?
Well, here's the best way to sum it all up, David. I heard this quote many, many years ago from the education secretary under Ronald Reagan, named Bill Bennett, and he said it best. He said it this way. He said that I'm sorry, he said every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So those are good parting words to live by. Nobody's perfect, and we all have a bright future. I enjoy reading out of the Life Recovery Bible because it's kind of what God's view is of people that have addictions or of any kind. So um, that's my strength. I read out of that every day. So that's encouraging. I have a 93-year-old mother-in-law that loves the Gospel of John, so we're just in the beginning of studying that. We were supposed to start last week, but it was 18 below zero without the wind chill up here, so I didn't want to go out in the cold.
I get that.
And we're just now getting some nicer weather up here,
Mm,
so
okay. But I'll make sure the links are in the description, like I said, and I know you'll probably will send them to me just for clarification, which will be good because that way I got the right links. But
yeah.
Michael, thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
You're very welcome, David. I thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And now, a message from Ammie. Ammie, it's over to you.
Hello, I am Ammie Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later. The Journey Podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.